This is where 4 years of art school are just going to pay off for me. Not really. This is horrible, but it'll do for our purposes. That's supposed to be your stomach. That's supposed to be your liver, large intestine in the blue, small intestine in the green. That was the hard part. I don't know, right? Gallbladder coming off your liver, right? Dumping into the top of your small intestine, you know, the lower end of your stomach, or once it's past your stomach, right, the gallbladder hooks up and dumps stuff in. But anyway, today we're going to talk about and try and show you artistically why that diet from the store, the fruits and veggies, make you sick, and why you're supposed to be eating fatty stuff and how that heals you. Alright. One thing I'd like to point out is that stuff in the store, the fruits and veggies versus the wild stuff, that stuff in the store is a lot less fibrous per calorie. Okay, so when we're eating all that man-made stuff, and go get a bucket or something and put some water and some corn, wheat, yeast, a bunch of sugar and fruit and whatever else, and sit it in the corner for a while. Look at all that fermented garbage, right, that comes out of that. Moldy, God knows what. That's what's in your intestine. Especially your large intestine. It's just this warm, wet sack, right, that your immune system cannot reach into. What your body relies on to keep your intestines clean is bile. That's cool. But anyway, first off, how you got sick. So that low fiber, high sugar stuff, it ends up rotting in your gut, right? It doesn't pass out very well, or pass through very well. So you get this growth stuff. I talked about pulling out the dead lining of my gut in like the first or second video. Yeah, stuff gets stagnant and it just stays in there. And that's a great environment for parasites and stuff. Overall, it's a little more acidic than your blood, which is trying to be 7.4, I believe. So this environment's a little more acidic, and it's kind of working against things. Because all this rotted gunk in here is leaching into your bloodstream, where your liver has to try and deal with that stuff, right? You're poisoning yourself. When you eat fats, the number one thing your body does is create bile in your liver, right? It goes down a little tube into your gallbladder and it stores it there, that bile. Bile has a lot of stuff in it, a couple acids that break down fats and whatever. And mind you, bile is made of salts and fats. You need a bunch of that to make bile. Okay, so, with me so far. Bile, what we're going to look at today is, bile is salty. Bile overall, despite having a couple acids in there, bile overall has a pH of 7.6 to 8.6, making it alkaline, like a mild detergent. Bile has salt. Salt is a bacterial inhibitor. When you are trying to ferment cabbage and make sauerkraut or something, or to sour meats, you're going to put some salt into the mix. That keeps the bad bacteria away, and the good enzymes and bacteria can grow and give you the soury thing without it rotting. So salt is a bacterial inhibitor for the bad stuff anyway. I know there's some bacteria in your gut that's supposed to be there, but I assume that is used to the salts in bile, where the bad stuff is not. But anyway, the pH is 7.6 to 8.6, which is like a mild detergent. So the system is, your intestines are supposed to be cleaned out, or kept clean, maintained, by the presence of bile. Because your immune system can't reach within your gut. You know what I'm saying? So your body has to do something to keep it clean, and that is bile. To create bile, you need fats and salts. You need to consume them. The first thing your body does is produce those in your liver and store it in your gallbladder. What triggers the dumping of the gallbladder is you consuming a half pound of bacon or whatever. You consume fats, there's a hormonal trigger that goes off and your gallbladder dumps this nice alkaline stuff on that, probably a little bit acidic stuff that came out of your stomach. If it doesn't happen that way, if you don't eat those fats, right? The first thing your body did was create the bile to digest the fats. The second thing your body does is dump the bile to digest the fats that you ate. Now, if they don't get dumped, right, this liquid bile, it starts to dry out and we get the formation of stones in your gallbladder. And they dry out and they kind of pelletize. Like say when I did all my gallbladder cleanses, they're like a little green mushy jelly bean, light green, and as they get older they get dark, black-ish. Biological fluids were not meant to sit around. They deoxygenate, they dry up, basically, and they get funky. Rot starts to get in there. So it's not just in the gallbladder that these things sit. Over time, this whole duct that goes back up to your liver can get full of stones, and you can get stones up in your liver. And then things are just way plugged up, right? Now your liver can get fatty. When I was younger, I tried the vegetarian thing. I assumed fruit juices would be good for me, but they really just gave you a fatty liver. Fats don't make you fat. Sugars do. And it's sugars that plug up your liver. Because we didn't eat them, we didn't eat the fats necessary to trigger the gallbladder to dump that that bile. Now you're catching on, you know what I'm saying. So, and that's how you got sick. Your liver can't do its job anymore. Your liver's trying to filter your blood, but it's all plugged up full of gunk. Right? Plus it has just stagnant stuff rotting in there. Old fats, old bile, making stones, making your life miserable. Now this detergent, this bile detergent, is no longer getting dumped into your colons and system on a regular basis, right? So all that funk starts growing in there. When you eat meats, when you finally eat those fats, right? Now things get triggered and that bile starts dumping into your system. That mild detergent, right? Salty detergent, right? Starts dumping into your colon. And mind you, to go get a copy of The Science and Practice of Iridology by Bernard Jensen, to get that, right? And read it. It'll show you all this stuff. It's cool because you can just see it in the iris of the eye. That detergent, called bile, will start to dump in there and wash that sucker out. Now all of these sources of toxicity, all of this poison that was flushing back into your bloodstream, causing God knows what, disappears. It can take a while, and it can take weird. We talked about the healing crisis. Your body readjusting can be uncomfortable, and you can get sick, you can get a fever and stuff. And it's fine, just let it happen. Let your body clean out. But anyway, and it took, I don't know, a year, maybe 2 even, before I felt like everything had stopped off or topped off improvement wise, right? And it was all felt cool. But things started to happen. You know, as my face is kind of pockmarked, or liver spotty, let's call it that. Those were all growths at one point in time, but they're kind of not anymore. They're just discolorations. And they're starting to fade out. Another year or two, I might be handsome again. But anyway, my overall health is still improving because bile is dumping, washing out my gut, and it feels awesome, and that reflects in your whole system. If you are trying to take a nutritional something, an herb, to deal with some kind of chronic situation, until you get this done, right? This is the damage. There's a reason why we take care of damage first. Until you get this done, you're just not going to gain any ground. Not really. Not like you could. Anyway, that should conclude chronic disease stuff. Next, we'll start getting into structural disorders. It'll be super awesome. Thank you.